We're very excited about the upcoming season. We've got a great group of guys to work with. They're working very hard right now. And they need to because we got a lot of work to do, a lot of new faces. We have basically 10 scholarship players. Most college basketball programs have at least 12 or 13 guys. We only have 10 this year. 5 of them are returnees and 5 of them are newcomers. So they actually form 2 good units, and they're battling against each other now. And my coaching staff and I are looking forward to seeing us improve on a daily basis. Any questions?
That well. You mentioned all the newcomers. Have some of them really stood out to you, showed they're ready to play a big role? Right away. I know one of them's a transfer, I assume you're talking about, and the other 4 freshmen.
Yeah, right. I think they've all done a good job. They've all shown signs that they can help us. Bruce Brown is a very athletic player, high energy guy, smiles all the time. He reminds me of Duran Scott in a lot of ways. DJ Vasilovich is an outstanding shooter. He can handle the ball. He's just very good offensively. Rashad Muhammad is a transfer student who's become eligible. He weighed 157 pounds when he arrived. I think he weighs 184 now. So he's made a lot of progress in the strength and conditioning program. I think Steve Feldy deserves a lot of credit for that. Dewan Ewell, everybody should know, 3-time state champion at New Orleans High School, terrific athlete, and really a fun kid to be around. And then Rodney Miller, about 7 feet from Oak Hill Academy, doing a very nice job as well. So those are the 5 newcomers. The returnees, though, are the ones we're going to especially count on early because they know what we're doing. We have so many things still to add. I'm hoping the veteran players remember what we did from last year because it's not going to be too much new for them. But Jaquan Newton at the 1, Davon Reed at the 2, Anthony Lawrence at the 3, Kamari Murphy at the 4, and Buka Zundu at the 5 is a nice combination of veteran players who all play different positions. So they all complement each other. And then the newcomers the same way with Bruce Brown and DJ sharing the 1-2, Rashad at the 3, Dewan at the 4, and Rodney at the 5. So those guys have also played very well together as they've kind of learned what is expected.
Jim, has Dewan satisfied everything that he had to do internally to get past?
That's an ongoing process. There are, I'll say, 3 different phases. One is the athletic side, second is the university side, and the third is the law enforcement side. The legal side. So, he's working through all that.
Just with Jaquan, I know we talked in the offseason about how improving his shot from the perimeter and stuff, that he's seen strides in that, and also how does he get that to implement into his game, let alone shoot a higher percentage?
The thing I've noticed more than anything is how much higher he's jumping. He's actually becoming a better athlete, quicker, faster, stronger, jumping higher. He's got the ball in his hands constantly, as much as Shane Larkin did, as much as Angel Rodriguez did. And I don't know if I would have predicted that last spring when we started this, but as we've developed as a team, I can see him really taking on more of a major leadership role. And because of that, last spring I chose Kamari Murphy and Davon Reed to be our captains, but I also asked Jaquan to step up his leadership because I'd like him to be one of the captains as well. And on our first day of practice, I elevated him to a captain's position. And the reason I say that's an important role for any player. And it's important to have all your needs met by your leaders. So sometimes it's very hard for just one guy to do it on his own. I made the mistake of just having Angel Rodriguez be the only captain his junior year, and in February, I turned around and asked Davon, Sheldon, and Tanya to help him. It was just too much on him, too much on his plate. And that worked out much better. And then last year, we had the great year, I think, because all four of those guys took on the responsibility of helping each other lead the team. So adding Jaquan as a team captain was important for this team to progress the way I'd like to see it progress.
What did you see from Jaquan on that front? Because I know that was so important when the season ended last year. What did he start to do to kind of elevate himself in that role?
When he was the sixth man, it was very easy for him to come in and just play. Now, the job he did was fantastic. I mean, Dick Vitale called him the best sixth man in college basketball. But he had those upperclassmen, Angel, Sheldon, Davon, and Tanya, to really take on the leadership role. And basically, I rely on that leader. I deliver the message to him or to them. They then got to deliver the message to their teammates. And this year, back in September, we brought in the Navy SEALs. And one of the things they did, the reason we brought them in is because we wanted to be sure that the messages that we wanted delivered, that the Navy SEALs could share it with them, but from a different point of view. So one example was they had the players do jumping jacks. And there was one leader out in front. It happened to be Jaquan this time. And you have 12 guys that are in groups of groups of 3 and 4. So it was 4 across and 3 deep. And one guy out in front. And the Navy SEAL director said, okay, we want to have, one perfect jumping jack. So Jaquan said, okay, one perfect jumping jack, and they did it. And then the Navy SEAL turned to him and said, was that a perfect jumping jack? And Jaquan no, it was good, but wasn't perfect. And then he asked Jaquan, are you going to be satisfied with that as the leader? You want to be great, or you just want to be okay? He says, no, we want to be great. He said, well, then you'd better do it perfectly. And all of a sudden then, Jaquan said, barked out, one perfect jumping jack. And every player responded, one perfect jumping jack, in unison. And then they did it together in perfect alignment, everybody at the same time, with the same kind of focus to do it correctly. And that's the message that we wanted, for our leader to direct and the other guys to follow, and not just do it okay, but to do it great. And we have slippage. Some days it looks great, and some days it doesn't. Sometimes that perfect jumping jack isn't so perfect. But the message is, we're going to do all these little things correctly, and we're not going to be very good until we get it done exactly right. Not close to right, but exactly right.
Teams can bring in speakers and SEALs, military. I mean, it's not uncommon for teams to the outside to do that, but sometimes you get the sense that they're there for an hour or two or a day or two, and then it goes away. What do you think?
Well, it goes away if you allow it to go away. Then it's up to the leaders of the team, who are me and the coaches, if we don't follow through, then it's not going to succeed. We send a message to the players. We bring in people to send messages to the players. But after those messages are given, if you don't follow up, it's worthless.
In the weeks that have passed since the SEALs were here, then what has resonated?
Well, I would say we understand what we have to do. We try to do it right. But if you're observing, you might say this guy is not totally focused. And to me, that's a sign. It's very symbolic of, yeah, we're a little young, a little inexperienced. We don't pay enough attention. When you're going to do something together, and this was my observation, if you're in a line with three guys, so you're in the middle and there's a guy on your right and a guy on your left, if you're not looking to be sure everybody's doing it together, you're kind of the leader. They should be looking at you and you should be looking both ways. If everybody is focused, then you'll do it correctly. If you don't, if you just do it your way, they might be a split second in front of you or behind you, you don't even know it. Now, what we're trying to teach them is the significance of that, even in stretching and warming up, is when the game begins and we are running a play, if one guy is out of step, the play doesn't work. Everybody's got to not only know the play, but be able to execute the play. The same thing is at the defensive end of the floor. If we're guarding a ball screen and that screener is rolling, and the guys who are guarding the ball screen are doing a great job, but the help defender who's supposed to take on the roll man is not there, he's not connected to those other two guys. If the five guys are not connected and doing it as a team, then it doesn't work very well.
What will you be looking for your second wing spot this month?
My second what?
The second wing spot with Davon on one side, just that second group, you got a group of guys competing there. What will you be looking for this month from them?
Oh, just we want them to be the best players that they can be. I mean, all these guys have their own strengths and weaknesses. When you say competing, a lot of times you think you're competing with another player. Our view is you're competing within yourself. So you have to be the best that you can be. And if you are really good, you're going to play. I don't know if you're going to start or how many minutes you're going to play, but if you can't get your level of play up to what you're capable of doing, there's a good chance you're not going to play much because you can't even reach your own potential. So we're working with guys to get them to understand this is about tremendous effort to produce yourself. And I think they're all doing a pretty good job of that.
Does it make your decision a little bit more unique because they do different things, like you said?
Yeah.
Does it make your decision? And maybe it's going to be something that flips throughout the year.
Well, it's going to change throughout the year because of their strengths and weaknesses. So if for example, there might be a time when we're facing zone and we need a lot of good three-point shooters out there. And then we may face a time where we're playing a team that plays really good pressure man-to-man and extends the defense, and we need guys who can really handle the ball. Well, those might not be the same guys versus man versus zone. But we just have to have the kind of lineup that we can put on the court that works effectively against that defense. And the same is true defensively. We might play a team that's very big, and we need big guys to just battle them on the boards. Other nights we might be playing against a team that's very small and shoots a lot of threes, and we need to go smaller just to match up properly with them. And one of the things coaches do all the time is you look outside your own program to see what other coaches are doing. And the best basketball in the world is played in the NBA, and you see all the adjustments that not only teams make or coaches make within their team, but how it impacts the entire league. Now, the Golden State Warriors, by playing positionless basketball, by having Draymond Green play both center and point guard during the course of a game. Now, LeBron James is a multi-dimensional player who has created that positionless. I don't know what position he is. He plays the 1, he plays the 2, he plays the 3, he plays the 4. I don't think he often plays the 5, but there are probably times he does that too. And the good part for the Cavaliers now is he does them all very well.
Just looking at the program itself, so you won the league, won the tournament, they miss out on the tournament the next couple of years, and you were back in the tournament. What's it taking? What's this position? What position is this team in, say, to get back and keep, instead of going like this, more like this?
Yeah, honestly, the league has gotten so good and so deep. And I saw in one preseason bracket, someone projecting what the 68 team field would have, and it had 10 ACC teams. That is a lofty goal, getting 10 in, but I have a hard time figuring out who are they leaving out, because the teams are so deep and so talented right now that 11, 12, 13 are also going to be very capable of competing with the best teams in the country.
They name the teams, and were you one of them?
We were, and they did name them, but I don't think that means anything because they could have just substituted one of those teams that they didn't put in there, and I think it would have been just as strong a field.
Jim, probation ends here in a couple of weeks.
What, say that again?
The NCAA probation ends in a couple of weeks.
Does?
I guess there's not a countdown clock or anything, but, yeah.
I think
two-
it's
My-
the 21st.
yeah, we can.
What is it?
The
21st.
21st.
What does that mean?
That's what I was gonna ask. What does that mean?
I didn't even know. I just know that this year we can go back to having 13 scholarships and a full roster if we choose to. No, it hasn't impacted us. I shouldn't say that. The date of when the probation ends, we have given no thought to. Being on probation and being investigated since the day I arrived, that's more than 5 years that we've dealt with it. It has had a major impact. But now that it's over with, I can see the difference in our recruiting. Last year it began by signing DeJuan Ewell and Bruce Brown, two very highly regarded players. The kids who have visited our campus, who I'm not allowed to talk about, who are very high-level players as well. We've had a total of 7 official visits utilized. So we'll see how we do, but the competition, I have a brother who follows us pretty closely, and he asked me how we're doing. I said, depends on what you mean. He said, well, I mean with recruiting. I said, well, we're having terrific players. And he said, oh, that's good. I said, yeah, and they're going to go visit Duke, Kentucky, Arizona, Michigan State. So you don't know how good they are until not after you sign them, but after they come and play for you and see what kind of contribution they made. But when people ask me about our recruiting, I like to say, ask me in 10 years and I see how they've grown as individuals and what kind of contribution they've made, not only to our program, but to the community.
Are you confident that your non-conference schedule will prepare you for the ACC?
I'm worried about our non-conference schedule in this manner. When you are scheduling, a lot of times it's in advance of knowing how good they're going to be. And I know people tend to think, well, you can control your non-conference schedule. You can't. It's so impacted by circumstance. So, for example, a couple of years ago when we didn't make the tournament, we ended up in the NIT. If I had told you before the season we were going to beat Florida to end their 31 home game winning streak when they were 7th in the country, that we would beat Duke at Duke, but they would eventually go on to win the national championship, but we beat them at Duke 90-74 to end their 42 home game winning streak, that we would also win at Syracuse, would you think we're going to make the NCAA tournament? You're not nodding yes. Well, the answer is yes. I'm thinking we're going to win. But when we scheduled in the non-conference, we scheduled some very good teams that ended up not having the year that we expected them to. And the perfect example was Florida. They finished 72nd in the RPI. So it didn't even look like a good win when we won it at the end of the year. So I can't judge that. I don't know who's going to have a great year and who's not. You know, the teams you project a year ago, 2 years ago, if you're playing them home and home and you're in the second round, you don't know who transferred out. You don't know who turned pro. So they're just too many unknowns to predict how our non-conference schedule will impact us.
I'm told the Gator is always a good win.
Yeah, it was for me too.
How's Kamari coming along?
I think he's played the best basketball that I've ever seen him play in the last month. He's doing all the things we've asked him to do. He's working very, very hard. My hopes is that as a senior, he can still relax and execute the way he is now. The biggest obstacle for players is their conscious self. When they start talking to themselves and questioning themselves and being judgmental of themselves. One of our guys the other day came out and asked me how I thought he practiced, and I said, well, how'd you think you practiced? He said, I thought I was awful. And then first of all, it wasn't true. I thought he practiced really, really well, but he must have done a couple of things that he thought he should have done better or that he didn't do well at all. And the problem with being human is you think too much. And basketball is a game of instinct. The worst thing you can do after a missed shot or a bad play is start to replay it in your own head, because it causes you to make more mistakes and to hesitate the next time. You want players who just have supreme confidence in themselves and in their teammates, and they trust that in the end everything will work out. Because even the greatest shooters normally shoot less than 50%. That means you're missing half your shots or more. And if you're a three-point shooter, you're missing 6 out of every 10 shots you shoot or more. You have to have the ability to forget your misses.
Coach, have you been able to watch any of Sheldon, the Wizards, and followed his stuff? And what are your thoughts on
Sheldon who?
Sheldon.
Sheldon McClellan, the Wizard?
Yes.
No, he's been great. I've been texting back and forth with him. I went up and watched him practice, and he scored 20 points the other day. He's got a big game against the Knicks tonight, and we just love following him. Just a terrific young man and deserves every opportunity to play in the NBA because he's definitely an NBA talent.
When you hear the phrase locker room talk and so much attention these days in the light that it's getting, as somebody who works in locker rooms, what is that? Are you offended? Do you get upset when you hear things dismissed as that's how it is in a locker room? How do you react?
How much trouble am I going to get if I'm...
I have the same question for her too, for asking.
Oh, boy. Here's the way I look at things. I'm not in the locker room when the players are there by themselves, so I'm not going to judge what they say or do behind closed doors. But in my program and in my own beliefs, I think you should always be respectful of each other. So the language you use, the way you act and interact with each other should be in a first-class manner. I don't use vulgarity. I don't use it in the locker room. I don't use it in practice. I don't use it in games, not before a game, halftime, after a game. My messages to the players, I want always to be in terms of education, how to help them improve as players and as individuals and as a team. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I think it's very, very important, the role as a leader, as I see myself as the leader of our program, is to be a good role model, to conduct myself in a first-class manner. Because if I'm not, my high school coach used to use the expression that there are certain coaches that say one thing but do the other. You know, they don't practice what they preach. And they say, do as I say, but not as I do. I'm not of that same philosophy. My philosophy is I need to practice what I preach, to do the things that I believe are habits and characteristics that our players can emulate. And if I'm doing a good job, then hopefully our players will follow suit.
Coach, is there any, what's the impact those renovations are going to make on the team and the program in general?
I think it can have a huge impact. What we like to say, and for all of you here in Miami will understand this analogy, that in the ACC, we have some programs that I would consider like the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton. We're more like the Delano. You know, we're like that boutique place or a small private school, beautiful location, a great environment, very, very different than a big, large state university that has all the bells and whistles and facilities, 20,000 seat arena and, alumni everywhere around the world. We have alumni everywhere around the world, but far fewer. But they're still very distinguished people who have been hugely successful. And that's the way we want to be. We're that school that gives you a lot of personal attention, and anyone who comes here is going to get a great education and be a part of a very close-knit family. Now, one of the things, I meant to mention this to you, Amy, I think one of the things I'm so proud of right now in being a part of the University of Miami Hurricane Athletic Department is the success of my peers at the university, the other head coaches. If you look at the resume of a Mark Richt, a Katie Meyer, a Jim Morris, an Amy Dean, and all the way down the line, this athletic department has attracted some of the best head coaches in America to come to a school that doesn't have all the bells and whistles. It's far more challenging to win a race or to build a house when you have far fewer dollars to work with. And you have to be creative, you have to be energetic, you have to reach out and be far more inclusive, because it's just not natural. There were 65,000 plus fans at the football game on Saturday night. How many of them do you think were alums? Probably a very small percentage. And yet the place was packed with who? University of Miami fans, the people that our university has reached out to in this community and have made them a part of our extended family. And those fans were going wild. The noise in that place was incredible. And I felt very, very proud to be a part of the department and the program and cheering on our football team.
Going back to what you just said, Duke is a boutique and North Carolina is Ritz-Carlton. Speaking about tickets, I know last year you were talking about ticket sales, selling out. How are, I know it's early, but what are indications now?
What?
300 left.
Yeah, we're going to be sold out again from start to finish again this season. Amy's going to buy the remaining 300.
What are your innovations going on in the offices? Can you talk about
We are redoing our locker rooms, men and women's locker rooms, men and women's basketball coaches' offices. it really started, I think, in year two after Blake James took over, and we sat down and talked about the direction of the programs. And the university, we have certain limited budgets that can go to projects like this, so we had to go out and raise the money. And we were able to reach out to a lot of friends, and a lot of them were very understanding and very generous in their contribution. And the first phase of it is to redo the locker rooms and the offices, and they're being worked on. So it'll look like a construction site for the next month.
How does that impact everything? You guys just have to get a little creative?
Well, for us, our recruiting was really in September and early October. And even though we had a prospect visit this past weekend, we have the architectural drawings to show them what it's going to look like. But I think the environment is going to be so uplifting and so positive that when our guests come from November on, it'll be very, very helpful. We can't be any more thankful for the people who have made this possible.
Thanks, Coach.